Before we get started with today's Ancient DOS Games episode, let's take a quick look at E.T. for the Atari 2600. Now, this is a game that came out in 1982 and is widely regarded as one of the worst games ever made, though, quite frankly, I've played worse than this. But anyways, this game was made by just one person, and there was really high expectations for it, and the guy who made it was only given 6 weeks to put it together. So you can imagine, 6 weeks is not a lot of time to really make something groundbreaking or epic. Next to it, we have Mega Man for the PC. Now, this game came out in 1990 and was also riding on high expectations from the two previous Mega Man releases on the NES. It was also made by just one person, and it has a very rushed feel about it as well. And this is ultimately what E.T. syndrome is. It's when one person is given a project that's too big to handle in such an extremely short amount of time to rush it out for whatever reason. But because this show is about DOS games and not Atari games, we're taking a look at Mega Man for the PC. Looking at the game stats, we see that Mega Man was released by High-Tech Expressions in 1990, which is actually the same year that Mega Man 3 for the NES came out, and also the same year that Stunts, which was the previous game I reviewed, came out. So now you get an idea of the kind of quality that we're aiming for that isn't here. It's a one-player run-and-gun platformer. It uses a very strange 320 by 192 graphics mode, and supports either 4-color CGA graphics or 16-color EGA graphics, and even though it supposedly supports the Tandy graphics adapter, it doesn't work. If you choose the Tandy mode, it defaults to CGA. It only supports PC speaker sound, which is a huge letdown when you consider the really good music the NES games had. Though, music generally didn't sound very good on the PC speaker, so maybe that's a blessing in disguise. And as for its release date, as far as I can tell, it's still commercial, so if you want the game, you gotta go buy it. Finding a boxed copy of this game isn't actually that difficult, but expect to pay through the nose. The cheapest one I could find was $20. So really, this is a collector's item, and unless you really want to play this game for some obscure reason, you probably want to steer clear of it. Though, I should also mention that if you manage to find Street Fighter 2 for the PC, like the original Street Fighter 2 for the PC, it comes with Mega Man and Mega Man 3 for the PC as bonus games I have no idea why they would do something like that. And yeah, there is no Mega Man 2 for the PC. Just a little bit more strangeness to how these games came out. So as you've seen on screen so far, this game doesn't really have a strong start to it. You start going through this toll booth or something, and then you go down this path and you fight these mechanical dogs, and there's not really a whole lot to do. You just go to the end of the path where a camera sees you and lets you in, and there you go. Now you select your stage, and there's only 3 Robot Masters in this game: Dynaman, Sonic Man, and Voltman. And that's actually probably the order you should fight them in, since Sonic Man is weak to Dynaman's weapon, and Voltman is weak to Sonic Man's weapon. Though once you start playing this game, you're going to notice the first thing wrong with it, and that's the controls. The controls in this game are not very well planned out. Like, in a game like this, you would think you would have 7 keyboard keys to use. You'd have 4 keys for your arrows, for moving around. You'd have a key to fire your weapon, you'd have a key to jump, and you'd have a key to toggle your menu so you can select a different weapon. Sounds simple, right? Well, no, that's not the way it works in this game. In this game, the arrow keys are your movement keys, that's 4. Spacebar is your fire key, that's 5. J is your jump key, that's 6. Now I know that seems logical, like J is the first letter in jump, but just try putting your hands on the keyboard right now. Put one hand on your arrow keys, and put the other hand on spacebar and J. It's not very comfortable, is it? And that's not all, it gets even worse. The escape key is your menu key, and that's 7. Now, you have to move your hand from spacebar and J to escape, to press it to activate the menu, but pushing escape again doesn't cancel the menu, which means you actually have to push P to choose your plasma cannon, S to choose your sonic wave, D to choose your dynamite, or V to choose your volt shield. Oh, and E is your energy tank key. That's 12 keys now. That's way too many keys for a game like this. And to top it all off, when you're in the stage select screen choosing a Robot Master, spacebar doesn't do anything. You have to push Enter to choose a Robot Master. That's 13. That is way too many keys for a game that only needs 7. This is a game that really benefits from DOSBox's key mapper, because you can fiddle with a lot of this to make it a lot more comfortable to play this game. So now that we've got the controls out of the way, let's talk about the actual Robot Masters themselves and their levels. Now, Dynaman's level is the first one you want to play through, and it's actually a really... I don't know how to put this. It's like a level that completely defies the idea of run-and-gun gameplay. The only enemies that you can shoot in this level are the bees, and they're these little tiny bees that drop nails on you for some reason, and they're actually really difficult to hit, and you have to hit them twice in order to destroy them, and they fly on the screen, drop their nails, and fly off so fast that chances are you're never going to be able to shoot them. You might get lucky a couple times, but that's about it. So aside from those enemies though, you gotta go through this stage just dodging everything. Even when you get to the end and you have these ants that can be destroyed, but they're so low to the ground your shots just go right over them. So you need Sonic Man's weapon to destroy them. But you don't get Sonic Man's weapon until you actually go to Sonic Man's stage and beat Sonic Man. So you're stuck having to dodge these ants, and it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to the point where the person who was making this game actually put an energy capsule right at the end of this trench, because he probably knew that nobody was going to get through this section without taking some damage. And Dynaman himself is actually pretty simple. You just have to hit the spacebar a number of times, kick his butt, and then collect the Speak and Spell he drops. Wait, what? He drops a Speak and Spell as a key card to get into Wily's fortress. Okay then, I didn't know Robot Masters needed to learn how to spell. Anyways, after that strangeness comes Sonic Man's stage. Now, Sonic Man isn't Sonic in the sense of going really fast like Sonic the Hedgehog, but Sonic in the sense of sound, like, say, the Sonic Visor in Metroid Prime 2. The whole idea of Sonic Man is that it's a water-based level, and it doesn't seem like that at first, but as you get deeper into the level, you start to encounter the underwater area, and even Sonic Man himself you fight in an underwater section. Now, as for progressing through this stage, it's actually kind of annoying, because, again, many of the enemies are low to the ground, and you can't shoot them, except this time around, you have these frogs that are low to the ground that jump in a pattern, which means you can only hit them when they're in midair, and then you have these little lizard-like things, which are low to the ground most of the time, and then at random moments they'll poke their head up, and that's when you can shoot them, and they take 2 hits, so if you only hit them once, and they poke their head back down, you gotta wait again. So this level's a bit of an annoyance, and there's even some electrical areas later on in the level that are really hard to jump across because you only have to just touch the edge with your little foot, and you'll get shocked by it. So it's a very annoying stage. And Sonic Man himself is actually not that hard. He's a little harder than Dynaman if you don't have the dynamite, and even if you do have the dynamite, you have to know how to use it if you want to kill Sonic Man in just 1 or 2 hits. If you don't know how to use it, you're going to launch the dynamite, it's going to miss Sonic Man completely, and you have to wait for the entire explosion from the dynamite to be finished before you can launch another one. So you might have some trouble with Sonic Man at first, but ultimately, he's not that hard. And lastly, I have Voltman's stage. Now, Voltman's stage is also a bit of an annoyance, not to the same degree as Sonic Man's stage, at least in terms of consistency. For most of Voltman's stage, the enemies you fight are actually shootable, so you can actually, do some damage and feel like you're actually making some real progress. But there are some really annoying parts in this level. The first one are these tanks. I don't know what you call them. They have this spinning thing in the middle, and they got this gravitational pull that keeps you from jumping very high, but then also pulls you towards the middle, and it's really weird. And worse, you have to get through these things with these electrical pulses, and you have to time it very, very precisely to get through them. And there's these enemies that fly by that try to shoot you in the process. So it's just a timing nightmare, and you just gotta be lucky sometimes to get through these things. The next annoying part is this particular section right here where you have an energy tank behind a wall. You can't shoot this wall unless you're level with it, and you have to use Sonic Man's weapon. And to top it all off, if you shoot Sonic Man's weapon at the wall, the explosion will hurt you and will send you flying backwards off the edge. So to actually get this energy tank, you have to get level with it, shoot a Sonic Pulse into the room, face the other direction, and let the explosion pull you backwards into the room. It makes absolutely no sense from a physics standpoint, but whatever, just roll with it. In fact, this is the only energy tank I know how to actually get. The other one in Sonic Man's level is, I don't know, it's like the most impossible jump in the game. And speaking of jumping troubles, this next part here, where you have to get over these disappearing blocks, if you touch just a little bit of the edge of one of these blocks while you're going upwards in a jump, you'll immediately start falling and head straight into the spikes below. It is very annoying. So the only way to get past this part is to actually jump straight up and then aim for the next block in the middle of your fall. And it's made even harder because this particular section clearly indicates how this game has really bad timing. The timing in this game is completely based on nothing. It's based on the speed of the system, which means when you get to a section like this where there's a lot of animation going on in the background, the speed is no longer constant and fluctuates, and it can make timing these things really difficult. Voltman himself, however, he's actually very hard. You see, Voltman has this shield that protects him, and for most of the battle, he's invulnerable. The only way you can damage him is to carefully jump your way through the pulses that he emits when he removes his shield, I guess you could say. It's more like he expels it as a weapon or something. But you jump between the pulses, you get close to him, and you just blast away with the Sonic Pulse. And if you do it right, you can get him in one go, but you gotta get pretty close because you can only have one Sonic Pulse in the air at a time, and if you miss, it's gonna start bouncing around the room, and you'll have to wait for it to dissipate before you can fire another. Now, I should probably mention that up to this point, there hasn't been a single classic Mega Man enemy in this game, so by now you're probably not even expecting any. But one of the first enemies you encounter when you actually get to Wily's fortress is a hard hat. Who'd have thought? So this last stage is basically just a mishmash of all the other stages together, and you have to fight the 3 Robot Masters all over again. And it's actually not that bad a stage. Like, I mean, this is when the game starts to come alive finally, because this is the section that is actually fun. Like, you have the 3 Robot Master weapons, and if you use them properly, you can get to the end of this level really easily without taking too much damage. You even get to face some Sniper Joes before the final battle, though, let's be honest, they look better in green than in red. And the final battle is actually really easy. All you gotta do is arm Sonic Man's weapon, shoot the robot until he explodes, switch to Voltman's weapon, and then hit Wily until he goes kaboom. And that's basically it. You've beaten the game. Like, I mean, when you're an expert at this game, you can beat it within 15 minutes. It's that short. So, I don't know what else to say, really. Game's over, so let's just talk about how you can actually get this game working best in DOSBox. Because the speed of the game is not fixed, you have to choose a fixed cycles count with DOSBox, or this game is just going to go ridiculously fast when you try to play it. So I recommend a setting of 600, which is the setting I was using for capturing the video. You can tweak that however you want to. Like, I mean, you can make it lower if you want the game to go a little slower, or you can make it higher if you want the game to go faster, but I think 600 is the best number. And as for the controls, you really need to use DOSBox's key mapper because the controls in this game are ludicrous. Use the key mapper to remap those controls to something that's much easier to use. Like, say, the Japanese layout, which is common, which is where you would have Z for your fire, X for your jump, C for your menu, and then you could use 1, 2, 3, and 4 for your weapon selection, line them up the same way you would that's shown on the screen, and that would be really easy to use. And you could also map the Enter key to the Z key so that when you push Z, it not only acts as a fire button, but also lets you choose a Robot Master. And as for filters, I actually recommend using the graphics filters for this game because they tend to work best with the low color and low resolution modes. And my favorite is the HQ filters, though it all depends on which one you like the best. And that's all I gotta say. Stay tuned for episode 3, should be coming next Saturday, and I'll be reviewing a space shooter that everyone needs to try at least once. Better yet, it's freeware now, so you can go download it to your heart's content. And what game is it? How am I gonna tell you guys without giving it away? I think the best hint I can give you is that the title has a theme of purple in it, and if you turn the title around, it actually remains the same title. No more hints, so stay tuned for next Saturday.